Once again, good evening and welcome to this internship program. So, as always, before starting the new session, we'll take few queries. So, anybody who has queries regarding our previous sessions, they can type in the Q&A section and we'll address as much as possible. And we'll take some questions at the end of the session as well. If you have some queries, you can type in the Q&A section. And also these sessions are telecasted on YouTube. So if you have any issues joining via Zoom, you can join this on the YouTube as well. And we'll be sharing a Skype group in the chat, and so you can join that group as well for some discussions if you have over the issues and the sessions. Okay, so the Skype group link and the assignment link has been shared on the chat. So you can save that assignment link and try to complete the questions whichever has been completed for the topic. And if you still have any doubt, not able to complete any question, you can ask us in the Skype group. Okay, Swati, we at the end of this session will take how we can take values from the user in free format. And I think there are no more questions, so we can start with today's session, which is the continuation of the previous session of DB2 SQL. So once again, we have Adarsh with us. So Adarsh, you can take over and share your screen.
Going deep on that, I'll just walk you through what are the contents that we'll be covering up today. So today we'll learn about the replace and translate function. And after that, I'll tell you what are the sequences and what are the usage of it. And there are system tables available as well, which are provided by IBM for our accessibility. And apart from that, there are user-defined functions as well, which comes along with various PDFs in a different level. We'll talk about it later. And then I'll walk you through the concepts of join and we'll see how a table RRN is critical at some of the times. And after that, we'll see how we can format a date, time, or a timestamp according to our requirement. After that, we'll go with the working of with selection and how it is uh, usable for our requirement at any point of time. And after that, we'll learn about a merge statement that comes along with DB2. So first of all, we'll continue from where we left off yesterday. For going through the concept of exist, I'll quickly create the same table that we have been using yesterday. Or maybe we can use a different one, which we already have in the system, rather than wasting our time on creating something new. So will be using this table except p, since it has few of the IDs which are different from each other. So this is the ID numbers. Two of them are similar, and two of the rest of the two are different. So when I told you about the exist condition, we'll have to use it after the where keyword, and then we'll be using a subquery. And from this subquery, it will pick up the data set and it checks whether the data set from the source table exists in the virtual table from the subquery based upon a condition. So that's the basic usage of the exists. So since we are using a same table in a same query, however, it is being used in as a source and as from a used as a subquery data set as well. So we'll be using alias for that. And alias is used for identifying a table set at that particular point of time. So let's suppose we are using A as an alias to identify this table as a source one, then we can use another identifier here. Let's say we will be using B to identify this table from the source subquery. Okay. Now we can use a condition that A dot ID will be equal to B dot ID. And if we try to see the data, then all the matching uh, values from the field that has been mentioned over the condition in the subquery, it checks if the same records exist or not in the source table, and it returns the values. So that was about the exist condition. Now we'll jump into the replace and translate function. Now, as you can see here, the replace function, what it does is it checks for a set of data from the expression which we have provided as a first argument, and will be giving the set data set as the second argument, and the last or the third argument you can say is the expression or data set to which we need to convert from the source expression. So since you can see in the example that if let's consider this third example, it will be much clearer in this one. So if we are using this expression and we need to change the set of 3 to 1 from the source expression into 456, then you can use a replace function to do that, and the result will be as it is shown here. Since you have seen that it is being used as a character here, you can use it as a numeric as well, means not enclosing within a quotes. So in this case, we have replaced the 67 at the end with the 8. So this is how replace function works. And now the translate function, it checks for exact expression rather than the data set. So if you'll be considering the last example here, it will check for the expression of 123, which is there in this expression, and wherever 123 is found, either it be in a reversed form or a simple straightforward form, it will just replace it with the expression which will be providing as the second argument. And the last argument is the fourth argument is optional, and it is only required when the two expression, which is the second argument, is of a smaller length than the expression which will be finding to replace or translate, you can say. So it is not mandatory at all when the length of the to expression and the from expression are same. Or you can just pass it as a blanks, not an issue. So whatever the length which will be left over, the fourth argument padding will just come up in the place of that uh, separate area which is left over. So this also works with the numeric data set. As you can see in the example, it is working on a character data set since it's enclosed within a quotes. The same can be done with a translate. So wherever 2 5 is there, we'll be replacing it with a 6 7. So the 2 will be replaced with a 6 and the 5 will be replaced with a 7. Otherwise, we can use 5 too. Now in this case, the 2 will be replaced with a 7 and the 5 will be replaced with a 6. As you can see in the data set, the returned variable, value. So this is the working of a translate function. Moving on, there is accessibility been provided by IBM to use sequence. Now, what is a sequence? As you know, sequence is a numeric form, just apart from any technical thing. If we go into layman term, then sequence is just a numeric value which just increments uh, from the previous value, and the increment uh, set is can be anything. Means it can increment by 2 or 3 or 1. It can be any number. So it has been provided by IBM DB2 and for its usage you'll have to first create a sequence. Now whenever we are creating a sequence or creating a table or index, as I've told, that you'll have to qualify it with a library name. Otherwise the current library, it will get created in the current library. So in our case the current library by default maybe QGPL already. So you can either do a change cur library command and change the library over there so that you won't have to specify a qualified library in the statement that you use in the SQL interactive sessions, or you can just qualify a library name. First of all, we'll create a sequence and then see how it works. So syntax is create sequence, a sequence name. I'll be creating it my own library, and the sequence name will be, let's say, CQ1. You can see the syntax here. It says it will be starting with 1. The increment can be anything, start can be anything. It's the value that the user can provide. So if we are starting it with 5, let's say, incrementing it by 5, and other than that, we can specify the maximum value to which it can reach. Other than, you can specify no max. no max value. So to specifying a max value, you can use max value and then the value that we'll give it as 1,000. Then the next is not mandatory, which is no cycle or cycle. By default, it takes as a no cycle only. So no cycle or a cycle means whenever the sequence will reach its maximum value, it will cycle itself. If a cycle is provided, is been mentioned, cycle means it will again start with the starting value that you have mentioned and then increment it with the value that you have provided. So we can use no cycle or a cycle, just cycle. That's fine. Okay. The cache is not required at all. It's not mandatory. So if we'll just create a sequence with this, then you can see the sequence will be created in our own library. Now what it does is it creates a data area. If you look into that, DSP, DTA, ARA, and testlib SEQ1. Now this data area stores information that has been supplied by system for handling the increments, and it also stores where it has been created and what's the time it has been created and other informations as well. Now let's say there is an architecture for order entry, and there there can be order entry paths from different programs. Let's say one program is creating order from store, then other program is creating orders from directly from the customer services and so on. So in that case, if means if you are not handling it through a sequence, then you'll have to programmatically check on the order master file that what is the last order number being captured, and then the new order number will be supplied based on that. So what this sequence can help here is it will auto increment the number of the order if it's all numerics and assign the next incremented value. Now for using it, we'll create a sample table. Uh, Create table qtemp dbl as id, let's say id numeric of 10, and the other will be a name character of 20. Need to specify a record format. We'll just go without a record format. Now to insert a value using SQL here, you can use insert into the table, which is qtemp tbl, and the value from the sequence will be uh, next value for the sequence. This is the syntax how you'll be using it. Next value for SEQ1 and the name.
Adarsh, I think the screen is stuck. Can you reshare your screen?
You'll see here that one row has been inserted. So if you'll try to query the file to see what is the value that has been inserted,
Yeah, now it is visible.
the value will be 5, which is the starting value. Since we have accessed it just one time, the next value for SCQ1. So the first value has been stored, and for the next iteration for that, we'll just have to change a name. Let's say it's a second name. Okay, just hit and enter. So the record which will be inserted will be the next incremented value, and so on. Now, one demerit here is if you try to access the sequence directly by for checking what is the next value that will be entered or can be accessed. Then it will increment it values next value for sequence. It will automatically increment it and it will store it in the data area. So like you have seen that the 15 has been accessed right now. So the next time I try to insert the next value for sequence 1, it will be inserting 20 and not 15. So this thing just you'll have to keep in mind while using a sequence. And the same way sequence can also be altered, and for it you'll have to use the alter sequence statement, but here the syntax is a bit different. You can't use an F4 to choose what will be the value for any attribute that you need to specify. And for that case, you'll have to look at the syntax here and you can choose what you want to alter itself in the statement. So we'll just do an alter sequence test lib seq1, and here we'll just start increment by, or we can use a restart. We'll just restart it for the time being. Restart with 1. Now since the alter has completed, and now if you try to insert next, also we'll just change the incrementation, and that will be increment by, yep, increment by 1. Now in this case again, if we try to insert something, the next value being inserted will be 1, since we have altered the sequence and restarted it with a numeric value that we wanted to. Okay, and now the next iteration will be incremented by 1 since we have altered it. So if you try to see, you can insert it or just directly check it by using values, and it will show you the next incremented value. Now for using the same value, the next time you can use previous in as a keyword rather than next. So the previous will insert the previous value that it has stored in the data area. Okay, and if you'll check the table, the previous value was 2 and the same has been inserted. And this will not alter the sequence when you try to check by using values, since it is just the previous value. Uh, so it will be 2 all the time. Just make sure not to use a next, just to see what is the value being stored. Otherwise it will just increment it. And we can just drop a sequence, drop sequence test seq. So when we drop, the data area will be lost. Now the next one is a system tables. So the product library, which is QSys or QSys2 provided by IBM, has few of the views you can say for the logicals as well. So it has been provided by IBM to check various system values that are currently stored, or like there is a system ASP that you can see by doing a DSP system status. So it will show you the ASP value here, system ASP is this much and so on. So for that directly in SQL, you have been provided with a view which is ASP info, I believe. Yep. Select star from ASP info. It might support this version of the OS or it might not support because it comes along with the PTFs. So it is supporting. So you can see the ASP value of the system right here. And there are several other columns which has different information stored for you regarding the ASP of the system that you can check. So likewise, we have been provided with different other tables, for example, to check any system columns. System columns will give you all the columns that has been listed within a system for all the libraries. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to filter it out first of all for which library or for which table you want to see the columns that exists. So for that, if you take F4 in the select field, so you will have a column field here mentioned a table schema or a table name directly. Table schema is for storing the library, so you can use this column for condition as a library name or the table name we can directly use. The table name will, let's see, union P, the table which we are using. So for looking at all the columns that are there with the table name as union P, you can just query it. It will show you all the columns that exist within the table and the other relevant information like the attribute it has or the constraints that are attached to a column and so on. Data type as well, data type, the length, the field is nullable or not, the scale. So these are all the things that you can access from the system tables. So directly to see which all tables are accessible for your OS, you can directly use select star from and do an F4 in the from files. Take select any of the libraries that you want to see what are the system tables being provided and you can see the list here. To select any of the system fields, system files, you can select that file and hit enter. At a time, you can just use one file for selecting. And then if you are joining, then you can use a comma and then select another file for that. Okay. The next will be user defined table functions. So table functions are functions, as you know, are already defined with the uh, brackets, opening and closing brackets. So the functions for the functions, there are code within the SQL which creates a function or a procedures, and it returns a data based on any input values provided. So a function will always expect any argument to be passed into it so that it will return the information based on that argument being passed. So and in system tables you won't have to pass any arguments to view the information, just have to query into the table. Now as you can see in the sample, I have provided for a job log info. So it's a system means it's a user defined table function that comes with IBMI PTFs. And to see how we can use a job log info, you can just go into the IBMI site and query up for means look for this job log info UDTF, and it will show you the syntax how you can use it. So just using it just because I have used it more means most of the times. So the first the argument that it takes is one of the arguments is the job information of the user to look at the job log info for that session, and there are other arguments for this as well, so you can check that from the IBMI site. So to look up on means to check what are the informations that are provided with this job log info system function, we'll have to first take the information of the session that we are currently using, DSP job log. So this is our session or job information that we are currently running. Now let's start from job. So to specify a UDTF, you'll have to say it as a table so that the data returned will be uh, considered as a table, and the select star from will work on a table only. That's why we specify our table keyword here. Uses2 dot job log info, and then within single quotes we'll provide first the job number, then the user in caps as it is, and then the session name that we are accessing. So anything can be displayed by using a select star, which is of a table form only. Now you have to provide an alias for that table as well. No, one more in brackets. So you can see the job log, which can be accessed through as a table data. And here you have different columns. So now if you want to query for any job log that has been logged after a particular timestamp, then you can use this column and just use a where condition on that. For example, we will use a where condition over here, where this is greater than current timestamp minus 1 hour or minus 20 minutes. So from the last 20 minutes, these are the logs that have been recorded from in the system from this session that I'm currently using. So this can be used in this way as well. There are many other UDTFs which I would like you to explore and from the IBMI site as well. So it will be useful if you want to use it. The next will come up to is the joins in tables. Okay. So the first comes is a theta join. Now join is just retrieving uh, data set or specified columns from two or more tables based on any condition. If you won't mention any condition, then all the records will just be returned from the select statement. So the first one is a theta join, and the theta join is symbolized with a comma sign. So if you'll be using union p file with a comma sign, now we'll be using alias. Yeah, since our union p file and the file that we are using except p are having same column names, so the system will encounter an ambiguity while when we provide the joining condition. If we'll not be using any alias as such and just provide the id is equal to id as a joining condition, so it will just fetch up for this condition. We want our requirement is to fetch the records from the union p file and except phi file where the id values are matching. For those records only we want to retrieve the values from those two tables. Now what it will do is system will encounter an ambiguity since id exists in both the two tables, so it will not uh, means it will not consume this condition wholly, and it will encounter an error just because it will not try to link which column is belonging to which table. So that's why we use an alias. so that the table union P is identified with A, and the A will be means ID column which is linked to table A means alias A will be related to that particular table only for which we have used the alias, and the ID which belongs to the alias B will be identified to the table except P, and then the query will return a proper result. So this is how it works. Now this was about the theta join. Now we'll come up to the inner join or the normal join that we say. Now in join we do not use a comma symbol, we rather use a join keyword or inner join. Inner can be ignored, means it is not mandatory to specify, and here we'll have to use on keyword, so that this is the joining condition between the two tables, which is union P and except P. And when you try to see the result set, it will show you what are the joint fields based on the condition that you have specified. The next will be the outer join. The outer join is same as inner. So inner outer is just an uh, you can say a literal that is mentioned for a normal join. So the relevant joins that we have is a left join or a left outer, right or right outer or inner join. Okay. For a left join, just hold on for a minute. I'm sorry for interruption. I'll just resume it from where we left. So we were talking about the left join. So what happens with the left join is it will check for the table that is in the left side of the query that we have written, and it will check for any conditions or means it will check for the records from the file mentioned in the right side of the join keyword, and it will just retrieve all the records from the file that has been specified on the left side, and along with that, if any matching records are found in the right side of the file, right side file of the join condition, then it will retrieve the rows for that. Otherwise it won't consider for those records. So if you'll see for the data sets, since this table has all the same, let's check the data set first. Okay. So in the second file that we were using was a accept p, and it didn't had any id, means it has a id which is not matching with the id from the first file, and that's why it will not return any data for these two records, which is for ID 03 and name as Rehan or name as Shail, and ID 05. So when we do a left join and mention another condition as name, so you'll see just the four will be provided, and along with that, if you scroll to the right side, you'll see that the records which are not matching will be having null as a value. So this is what a left join does. Means it will return all the records from the first file which is specified on the left side of the join keyword, and along with that any matching any record satisfying the matching criteria from the left from the right side of the join keyword being mentioned, it will fetch those, or the rest will be showed as a null. In case of inner join or a simple join, this won't be a case, since it will just record for the only matching condition records. This is the record from the second file, and this is the record from the first file. So that's why the left join is being used to retrieve all the records from the first file, and the matching will be displayed for the second, otherwise the non-matching will be displayed as nulls. Now the same happens, but in a reverse order for a right join. So sorry. So for right join, all the records from the right side of the join condition file will be displayed, and the matching records based on the condition will be displayed for the first file, but the non-matching won't be displayed. So if we hit and enter the first file, non-matching fields will be having null values, but the right side of the file will be having all the records. So this is the difference between a left and a right join and the normal join. The next up will be a self join. Now, a self join is when a file is joined with itself. Means, so let's start from except a join. Now here nothing special keyword being used for a self join. It's just a join keyword, normal join, or you can say a theta join will also work for a self join, and you'll have to mention a joining condition here. Since the same file will be used, it will be referred to as a self join. A.id is equal to p.id. So this is the record, as you can see. Now comes the exception join. So exception join is a bit different from all the joins, since it will give out the unmatched values based on the joining condition. For example, if our file except p is having the these two as a different records, means different id number than the ones that we have in union p, based on exception join, just the non-matching id numbers will be retrieved from the file which has been mentioned in the left side of the join keyword. So to check how it works, we'll just run this query as, let's start from accept p file and accept exception join on union p file. The joining condition will be a.id is equal to b.id. So Since these are the unmatching fields based on the joining condition, those will be retrieved only, nothing else. So if you'll scroll to the right side, the file which has been mentioned in the right side of the join keyword will have null values, won't have any values at all. So this is how an exception join works. The next will be the table RRN. So as you all know that whenever a record is getting entered into a table, RRN value means on a particular RRN the record gets inserted, and RRN is nothing just but a relative record number. Means from the, if you'll be inserting a fresh record into a table been created, means it doesn't, means previously no record has been existing in that table and a new record is been inserted, then the RRN will be one for that, since the relatively the record number is one. Relatively means it previously it didn't had any record and it's a first record that has been inserted, then the RRN is one. So that is what the, how the RRN is assigned for any record. So we had a table which is TBL. So we have inserted few of the records here. So if you want to see any RRN value of a table, you'll have to assign it an alias. And then in the select fields, you'll have to mention RRN of that alias. And RRN always works with the alias only and not a table name. It will be a dot star since we want to check all other column values as well. So we'll just hit an enter and see the RRN number recorded against each field will be displayed. Now it is useful only when duplicate records exist in a file, and to find out which are the newly existed records, means newly inserted records, and which one are the older records on the duplicates. Let's say we have this records as 5, 10, 21, 2. Now we'll be inserting few other records here. Insert into table values 5, any name, and then 20, let's say any name, 1 with any name. Now if you want to see, then the ID field has duplicate values existing in it. Now to check which are the recently inserted records in the table, where the table is having a million of records, you can use the RRN in a query. So for using the RRN, like I told, you'll have to use an alias for the table name. Alias will be A, let's say, where RRN of A is equal to select max of RRN of B, the same table as B, where A dot ID is equal to B dot ID. Now what it will do is, whenever a subquery has been written, you first try to figure out what the data set will be retrieved from the subquery, and then what will be the value that will be passed on to the our source query. So in this case, what it will do is it will check the same file based on the ID number, and it will pick up the max RRN, the maximum of the RRN that is existing. So in our case, where we have run this query to see the RRN, in that case, based on the ID matching, it will check what is the maximum of the RRN that exists for a matching ID number. So the subquery for ID1 will fetch 9 in that place. The ninth RRN is the maximum of those two, the 9 and 4. And it will then again assign that RRN value of 9 to the RRN value of the source. query that we have. And for that, if we try to run this query, select max run. Okay, here one closing bracket is required. A what's the column name? ID hash. Sorry. ID hash will be ID hash. So as I told, for the one, the max RN value is being displayed. You want to double check it, you can run the same query again, and you'll see that the value of name it contains for ID1 for the maximum of the RN. Out of the duplicates existing in the table, the name is having this value, and the same will be returned for the query that we ran. So that's how you can know which is the recently inserted record for a particular joining field, for a particular field, you can say. The same can be used for knowing what was the uh, record that has been initially inserted or first inserted for a particular ID number. You'll have to just change the max into a min function. So for that subquery, then it will retrieve what is the minimum RRN based on the ID number as a joining criteria. And for that minimum RRN, it will show you data from the source query. So this is how an RRN works. The next coming up is manipulation of date, time, and timestamp. Now, as I've told you in the previous session, that we can access any current date or timestamp by using values keyword. So it will be values current date, then it will show you the current date. Now, if you try to see what will be the date after 6 months, then you'll just have to add here with 6 months. It will show you the date after 6 months. So the month will be added by a 6 unit. And if you want to see what will the date after 6 days, then you can just use a days keyword here, and it will show you what will the date after 6 days, which is 3rd of Feb. So the same can be done for anything you want to check for a previous day or a month or a year. Previous, as in you can do minus for that, minus 2 years, let's say years. So it will show you what was the date 2 years from the past. Okay. And one more thing is, if you need to extract any particular information from the date, which is either you need to extract a month or the date or the year, then you can directly use the function which comes with IBM DB2, which is day. So it will show you what's the day from the date. So for any date, let's say plus 5 days, if you want to see the day, which will be 5 days from now, so it will be 2, which will be 2nd of February. And if you want to see the month for that, you can use month function. It will show you what will be the month number. It will be February, so that's why it will be 2. And the year you can see as well using a year function. So it will be 2021. There are some other functions which have been provided to us, which is for if you want to see any particular dates, means let's say for any for the fifth day from now, we want to see what will be the last date of the month. Then you'll have to just use the function last day. So for the since the current date plus 5 days will be on a February, so it will just show you the last day for the February month for that year. So it will just retrieve you the last day of that month. So similarly, we have other functions which I have mentioned here in PPT, which says you can either pick out the day of week. What's the day of week? So it will return you with a value of 1 to 7. If it's a Sunday, it will return you as 1. And if you are using day of week underscore ISO, then it will treat Monday as value 1 and Tuesday with the value 2 and so on. And for to find out the day of the year, which day of the year it is, so it will give you a value from between 1 to 365 or 366 if it's a leap year. So that's how it works. Let's say day of year, day plus 6 or 4 months. So it will be the 148th day of the year, and the date for which we have retrieved the value is, you can see, 28th of May. So 28th of May is a 148th day of the year. So that's how it will work. Now you want to retrieve the day name, then it will be you'll need to use the day name function, and it will retrieve you with the value of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and or many means any character value of the day name. And for the week, for determining which week it's falling on of the year, then you can just use a week function, and it will show you out of 52 or 53 weeks in a year which week it is. For that uh, uh, week, the current date or the date that you have provided will fall on. So that's the usage of a week function. The next will be a month name. So right now, if you'll try to do a current date and use the function month name, it will show you January as the returned value. And the last day I've told you how what value it will retrieve. So these are additional functions to be used. The next step will be the formatting of a numeric into a date variable. Let's say you have a value as 2021-01-05. We'll relate to it as a table as TB as T1, assigning it a column name which is DT. Signify it as a date. Now if you try to hit enter, as not working. We'll rather use the table for this. So I'll just quickly create a table in QTemp. Table name will be Q1. The value it will hold is date value, type of date, not date, sorry, numeric. As we are trying to format a numeric data into date, the length will be 8. 8 as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I will create a table for that. We'll insert a value, insert into QTemp Q1. Values will be the same that we tried to use it. Then the next value will use two records, month, 10th. Okay. If you try to see what has been stored, then you can use select start from the table. It will show you a numeric values. Now, if you want to convert it into a date type, then you'll have to use just convert it into a timestamp format. And for converting it into a timestamp format, you'll have to use function timestamp format. You'll have to use the column name. The column name is date val. In our case, the format with which the date exists in here in the table. So the format is YYYYMMDD. Now what happens is it will not convert anything in a numeric value, so we'll have to convert it into a character type by explicitly mentioning char function over here. And if you see the result, it has converted it into a timestamp format. Now to retrieve a date out of it, you simply have to follow with a date function over here. So without converting into a timestamp format, you cannot directly retrieve into a date. Rather, there is another method for that, which I'll tell you right now. So this is how you'll have to convert it into a date. Otherwise, if you want to convert something into a date type, then the format being used is normally the format being used to convert any numeric or any character type into a date format is you'll have to provide a date function, and within that the value passed should be in character 2021, let's say, and there will be a hyphen symbol. So after the hyphen you'll have to mention the month and then the date. So all together you'll have to write a query or use a function so that this will be passed into the as an argument into the date function so that a date will be displayed. So for that we'll just use, rather than converting into a timestamp format, we'll simply use it as substring date value. Date value, yeah, from 1 to 4. So what the substring function will do is, I'll first show you what substring function will do. Yeah, substring function will just break the value, the string, the value that has been present there. It will automatically convert something into a character type and then do a substring over that. So it will just break from first position till the number of length that you have provided as a third argument. So from first position till the fourth length, it will consider as 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will pick up 2021 as a substring. Okay. Now what you have to do is, first of all, you'll have to get the output in this format, which will be concatenation of hyphen, which will explicitly mention with enclosed with single quotes, and then again sub str, which will start from fifth position till set 2 length, and then again concatenation of a hyphen, and then substring of 7 to from 7th position till 2 length. So it will show you output in this format. And as I've told you, the substring converts it into a character already and then does a breakup of the position and length of the source value. So it is already in a character format right now. Just we'll have to put a date function over here. So it will retrieve you the date. So this is another method. Okay. Now, like you have extracted date out of a timestamp, the same can be done to extract time as well from a timestamp. If you'll just use a time function, it will show you the time. Since we have just the date values which have been converted into a timestamp, it didn't had any time value as such. That for the time values, it had zero value, zero as zero literals. As you can see, that's why the time came up as 000000. So from a current timestamp, if you try to fetch a time, that can also be done. Uh, you'll have to use values date function over current date current timestamp. Sorry, a date function over a current timestamp will fetch you the date, or a time function will fetch you the time. Now, if you do not want this separator to be included in your result set, then you can use another function, which is varchar format. Varchar format function, you'll have to specify what is the format in which you need to see the data. So it will be in hour, in a 24-hour format, minutes, and seconds. It can be smaller in uppercase, it doesn't matter. Time, not time. Where it will fetch from the current timestamp only, and you'll have to provide here what is the output that you need from the timestamp. So it will show you the time without a separator and in the format that you have requested for. And so is for the date. If you'll mention dd yy, the same will be extracted in the format that you have requested. So this is the working of varchar format. So this was all about manipulation of date, time, and timestamp in AS400. Okay. Now comes the with selection. The with selection is means you can use any select query and use it as a virtual tables. And the syntax for using a with selection starts with with keyword, any alias name. Let's say we'll be using alias t1 and the as keyword. After as, you can select, you can write up your query that you want it to be a virtual table set. Let's say I'm using select star from union p. Now this subquery will be treated as a virtual table in this particular with statement. And then along with that, we can use another subquery and treat that into some other alias by using a comma after the subquery and starting with another alias name with as keyword. And let's say I'll be retrieving the T2 data set as from except P, where AD is equal to 3. So this is just, you can create as many as alias out of any subqueries from that by using this comma and the alias name. However, the final query will be a select query with for which the previous subquery should not have a comma at the end, and it should start with, the final query should start with select star from the alias name. Now, as I've told that the subqueries will be stored as a virtual tables, so those table name will be the alias. So if you'll do a select star from T1, the result set will show all the records from union P file. Now, if we want to see a T2, in that case, we'll have to just query for a T2 file, and it will show everything that has been retrieved over this condition. So for ID3 only, the result has been retrieved and stored with alias T2. That's why you have accessed the T2 record from the except v file. Now, what you can do is you can do multiple join. You can use multiple join queries as well as a subqueries, and at the end query, you can also use a join. In that case, uh, for example, I'll be using this alias and will be joining the T1 where, sorry, the on condition will be there since the join keyword has been used. So it will be T1 dot, since we have not used any alias, so we'll have to qualify it with the table name or the alias name that we have used here. Okay, so it will be ID is equal to T2 dot ID, and the result you will see there's nothing matching since the T1 alias, which is having records from union P, doesn't have any field where ID is having value as equal to 3. which is not the case with T2 since it has any record with ID number as 3. Now, if we try to change it, or rather, we'll use another alias with T3 as the same, but the condition from the subquery will be 1. Now we know that the union p file has id value as 1, and the records from except p also has id value as 1. So if we'll join this with a t3 dot, sorry, 3 will be used, yeah, e1 joining t3, then you can see all the records which are matching with the joining condition. So this is how a with statement is used. So you can have as many subqueries as you want, and at the final selection you can just choose what you want to retrieve out of those aliases been created or the virtual tables been created. Last will be the merge statement. So the merge statement, what it does is it allows us two functionalities. We can either do an insert or an update or both of them within a merge statement. So the syntax usually is merge into the file where you'll be merging, and the using keyword and the file from where data you need to merge on a joining condition of the two files. And it has this keyword when not matched, then you can either insert values or you can do nothing. If you are doing nothing, then you don't need to specify this when not matched. And if you need to insert when not matched, then you can specify this when not matched, then insert values. Otherwise, when matched, then update. So it is mostly used when there are two files. One is for storing the history data and one is for storing the newly entered data. For example, let's say uh, you have a system where you store the item numbers. So there is a item master table, and one will be, let's say, a history table, item history table. So you'll be in the item history table, you require to record all the items that have been entered in the system, and the item master table just records the items that has been newly entered. And when you try to merge it up in the history table, the newly created and the last created, it may happen that some of the items that have been already existing in the history table can change its name or description and then have been newly entered to the item master file. So in order to sync the records in both the tables, you can use this merge. As in the sample I have shown you, there were 5 records with having column as ID, name, and department. So there was a new data table where newly entered records existed. Now, if you can see the similarity between these two data sets from these two tables, the same ID number of 63 and 65 with the same name person, if has changed their department. So previously their department was COBOL, and if the for Jitain and his department has changed to PHP, then the new data table has recorded that uh, particular data, but the history table was still having the COBOL as department for Jitain. And same has changed for Nishi from Java to COBOL. Now to get the records on sync on both of the tables, what you'll have to do is you can use the merge statement, and here I am using the same, where I'm merging into the history table using the new data table based on the joining condition of ID number and name. When it is not matched means if there are any new records exists in the new data table which are not already there in the history table, then it will just insert the values of the ID, name, and department. For example, in the result set, you can see that these two records, the 71 and 72 ID number, those were not existing in the history table and thus have been inserted. and when matched, then it will update the department. So previously the department for Jitain was COBOL, and in the newly entered data, the recent department updated is PHP. So the update has been done for in the final data set that you can see, and this is the history tables data. So the Jitain's record is having now PHP as the department, which was previously existing as COBOL. So this is the usage of the merge statement. So that was it for today's session. And if you have any questions, you can ask me.
Thanks, Adarsh, for this wonderful session. So if you have any kind of doubt, anyone, so they can raise their hand, and after that, we can allow them to ask the questions.
Hello, sir.
Hi,
Oh.
Swati.
Sir, what is the difference between union and inner join?
Actually, in Union, what we do is that we try to join the two tables, two data sets from different tables using the union keyword, and it shows the result according to that. And join, we can use multiple join. Uh, Sorry, in join, what we do, we join two tables on the matching table. Oh, sorry, my matching data sets from both tables. So in join, what happened that what we do if both of the table has a similar column, so we join both of the table from that one.
Okay. Sir, in union means matching and unmatching records are extracted, right? In union.
Yes.
And union all is different from union, right?
Yes, for that you have to just go through the documentation of IBMI and SQL, so you can get the clear idea about that.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
If anyone have any question, they can just raise their hand and then we will allow them to ask the question, because we are already on time. If anyone have any question, they can just raise their hand and ask the question.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Ankush. Hi.
Sir, how I can use add RDB
Actually, the thing is, we don't use the RDB directory entry. So it is kind of a advanced concept. So if first try to complete the session that is provided, and after that you will be able to learn about that in upcoming sessions.
Yes, sir. I was confused in partition.
Okay, actually, the thing is, DB2 takes a little more concentration than other topics. So what you can do, you can go through the sessions once more, and try it according to yourself. And then, if you found an issue, you can ask them in next sessions also.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sure. Okay, so I think there are no questions. So we will call it off the session. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining the session, and try to complete all the assignments that is covered in session till today. And after that, we will meet